Hey, thank you all for coming to pitching your storyboards, how to conquer the fear of pitching and put on a damn good show. So yeah, this is a thing that I feel extremely passionate about, pitching storyboards. It's a thing that I love. It's a thing that I hope people that we work with love, because it's a lot of fun. It's a really great opportunity to share your work with everybody, and show your enthusiasm for the work. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to share the audio. So just to set some terms to start off, a little brief history of pitching. So storyboards, like, invented back in the 10s, 20s, 30s, and whatnot. Animation really helped bring storyboarding to the forefront of filmmaking, as being an essential part of the process. And back when they were first making Snow White, when they were even doing when Disney was doing their first initial shorts, they would pin storyboards to the wall, and the artist would pitch through them and basically make a verbal show of what the final film was going to look like, or what they were hoping it was going to look like. Uh, that persisted all the way through feature, through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. You can see Eric Goldberg pitching a sequence, who was a Disney story artist. And this pinning up storyboards to the wall and pitching through persisted all the way through, like, even to regular show, and even the first show, or the first board driven show that I worked on, Home. We would pin up the storyboards onto the wall, and everybody would sit in the room, and you would pitch them through the storyboard by either pointing to the panels or by holding a stick to them, and you would act everything out. So that was kind of the history of pitches, but not a lot of places do that anymore. I think, from what I personally remember, and maybe some productions still do this. I think maybe Jellystone still does this. But not a lot of productions pin the boards up, or pin the rough boards up to the wall anymore. They do something that feels a little bit more like film, and that's what we do on Big Nate, and that's what we did on King Julian and Home and Trolls and whatnot. So what does a storyboard pitch look like now in kind of this new environment? It essentially looks like a person sitting at the computer, excuse me, and everybody looking at a screen. Everybody looking at a screen, and you are pitching them through the sequence as you are showing your boards, and as you're doing the voices and doing the sound effects and whatnot. So essentially, what you're trying to do is add the component of time and rhythm and voice acting and sound effects. You're trying to add that to your storyboard without timing it in animatic, or adding the sound effects, or doing the music, or any of that stuff. So when you don't have the components of film, when you don't have the components of film and storyboard that you need, all the timing, the sound effects, the music, and everything, you are trying to add that into a storyboard pitch, and add a little bit of yourself too. Add a little bit of your own energy. Add a little bit about who you are. Which makes it a lot more fun. And I mean, this is obviously an example of in person. These days on Big Nate, it looks like a bunch of us in a Zoom room, looking at one big shared PDF, which is fun, because I mean, you get to be in a room with everybody, but it's not as fun as in person, where you can get the room energy, you can get the rhythm, and you can actually hear people laugh in Zoom pitches. Like, a lot of people stay on mute, so it's not as fun. So yeah, what is a storyboard pitch, and what does this functionally look like now for people that haven't pitched storyboards? Well, I'm gonna do 3 pitches. I'm gonna do the Big Nate cold open, which I boarded. I'm gonna do a small section from Fairly Oddparents to demonstrate something, and then I'm gonna do another third section, a little surprise. That isn't actually my boards. It was a board artist named Christine Liu, who was tremendous, and I just got the opportunity to pitch their work because it was freelance. Cool. So I'm going to do a quick little demo of what a storyboard pitch looks like. And I have to share screens here. Cool. So normally I would full screen this in order to juggle everything. Or excuse me, I would full screen this in order to make sure that you're seeing just the window content. But because I have to switch monitors between Zoom and everything, I'm going to keep the window chrome around there. But you generally want to like make this as full screen as possible. So this is from the Big Nate episode 1, and this is Legend of the Gunting. We push in on PS30. Hey, we hear ding, 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 bell rings. And we hear an old woman's voice. What do cave paintings teach us about early caveman life? And we pull out. They teach us cavemen were pigs and vandals who needed discipline to keep them from drawing on the walls. Now let me tell you about how hieroglyphs reinforce the patriarchy. And she keeps going. And all these kids, she's just rambling. This kid's like, oh, he falls asleep. This kid's carving his name into the desk, hisses at you. This kid, help me. And we're panning across, and we hear Nate, who's our protagonist. Welcome to Mrs. Godfrey's social studies class. We're learning goes to die. Don't get me wrong, most teachers are great. They work hard, don't get paid enough. They're basically heroes. Looks around. Don't tell him I said that. Godfrey, though, we pan to her. Godfrey's the devil. No, wait, not the devil. It all erases. Creature teacher. We pull away from the fire and we see that he's drawing Godfrey there. But ours is a battle eternal. Who will win? Undecided. But I promise you this, I will not fail. My school, nay, the world needs Nate right. Pretty accurate, huh? Detention. Boom, 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 and crashes. So yeah, essentially a storyboard pitch these days is a single panel PDF that you scroll through, that you play at the time, you do the voices, you pitch as much as possible, and yeah, and you make cute sound effects as much as possible. And a lot of different board artists have different rhythms, have different ways that they like to present. My personal style tends to be a little bit energetic, a little very high energy, very upbeat, because that's kind of who I am as a person. So what, as we talked about a little bit, what is the goal of a board pitch? A goal of board pitch is to make the pitch feel as much like the film as possible. So if you're pitching a high energy sequence, being high energy, so you're trying to put in all the elements that you don't have in a storyboard into the pitch in order to make it feel like the film. How do you do that? I got a couple of tips for that specifically. Number one, do not describe what we are seeing unless the visuals need clarifying or you are filling dead air. So if you have like a long pan across kids, and you have them doing something as you're panning across them, you don't need to say we're continue to pan out, and we continue to pan across these kids as they're sleeping and they're doing various things. You can just, if you've done the work in your board, you can just let your boards do the talking. You can just show them. You don't even have to describe a lot of camera moves. Like we do a slow pull out as we see that Nate is working at his desk. That takes like, a good 10 seconds or a good 5 seconds to say. And if you're describing exactly what they're seeing, then you're just duplicating information. So unless you're feeling dead air and you want to keep the energy up, and you want to say, say like, we whip over to a car and it goes vroom, and it goes through. You can skip most of the description if you've gotten across what you need to in the boards. You don't need to say like, Nate holds up a fork, or this character is eating some spaghetti and he twirls it around his mouth, and he twirls it around on his fork and puts it in his mouth. If you've drawn those poses, if you've drawn the twirling, if you've drawn him putting it in his mouth, you can just say like, you can just say like, you can do a sound effect. You can do for just Nate eating, or a character eating. So it's a little bit of a give and take, knowing what you want to describe in order to clarify for the audience, or you're filling dead air. And pulling back and just letting the boards do the work. So this is kind of a weird one, but if you are on, and this is me personally, if you are on a show that has very specific character voices, let's say it's like a more cartoony show like Fairly Odd Parents, or even Trolls sometimes, or Trolls a lot actually. They have like Smidge has a very specific performance. Cooper has a very specific performance. When you're reading the lines, imitate the actor's voice and performance as much as possible. And even if you are way out of the territory, even if you cannot hit the range of that character, it's always fun to watch a board artist or a performer even try to do it. Yeah, D&D is prepared for number 2. Heck yeah. I mean, you see Matt Mercer doing D&D all the time, and you see how many character voices he has. So yeah, it like feeds into that itself. So when you're reading the lines, imitate the actor's voice and performance as much as possible. And even if you're totally off, it's at least fun to watch someone try to do that. And so you get the audience on your side because you're trying as much as you can. And if you're on a comedy show, if you screw up, it's always kind of funny. You can get a laugh just out of screwing up and then move on. And I'm going to do a real quick Fairly Odd Parents demo. And my Fairly Odd Parents is terrible because I haven't done it in years, but I practiced a couple of times. So hopefully this will go okay. Let me share screen 3. Cool. So this is from an episode called Lame Ducks. And there we go. So we start on the moon, pan down, car goes through, and it's Attorney family. Boy, that detective movie was awesome. Oh, yes. I love Sherlock Holmes movies. He's so homely, he has to be smart. Still can't believe the butler did it. What butler? The movie was about a giant green lizard that destroyed Poughkeepsie. You wanted it to the wrong movie theater again, dear. I wanted it to the wrong theater, too. There was hot oil and popping sounds. You wanted it to the popcorn machine, Cosmo. Oh, that explains the imitation butter flavoring on my pants. I call it butt butter. Poughkeepsie. Yeah, Poughkeepsie in New York. So if you've listened to the performance, and I'm sorry that this is bad. I tried my best. But you do want to imitate the characters as much as possible, just because it's fun to listen to, and it's fun to see someone do it. And I love, and I think a whole audience, when you're pitching, loves seeing you try the voices, even if it's bad, even if you're doing your absolute best. It's still really bad, or it's still really good, excuse me, because when you're doing the voices, you're being vulnerable, you're trying really hard, you're doing the absolute best that you can. And when you're pitching, people are on board for that, regardless of how well you do. It's still a lot of fun to watch. Quick question, but did the voice actors take reference from the way storyboard artists pitch, or just follow the script and the voice director? That's a really good question. Excuse me. It really depends on the show, and it depends on the process. You know what, Young, I'm actually going to cover that at the end, because I'll go a little bit more into that, into the specifics of that, because that's a lot of pipeline stuff, and I'm sure that, like, I see like Nora in the chat and a whole bunch of other people in the chat. It's a specific pipeline thing. So let me go back to sharing my screen. So that was Fairly Odd Parents. And Fairly Odd Parents was a crazy show because we were pitching in the gym, and it was on like it was like a 20-foot screen, and you were standing in front of everybody on a podium. You were standing in front of everybody, pitching your work, and you were looking at a laptop, and everybody was looking at it. So if it went well, you got a lot of laughs. If it wasn't, it was a big empty room, and it was really, really, really intimidating. Yeah, cool. So that's step number 2. When reading lines, imitate the actor's voice and performance, even if you're no good at it. And I got a couple of tricks for helping you getting into the performance. Sound effects, just do them for fun. If we see a car going by, we can just hear. If a character is eating, you don't have to say Timmy is eating spaghetti. You can just go. If you're doing a whip zoom in, you can. If you have a shing of like a knife coming out, you can just do that sound effect. because that's what the final is going to sound like. They're going to have some they're going to put sound effects into there to make all that. And you can use that, and you can use that in your boards and in your pitch. For instance, like, it's a tropey thing of they hear a car horn off screen, or you hear a car horn off screen and the characters look, and you can just pitch that. So like Timmy says, guys, I think Mr. Crocker's going to hit us. And then you look over and boom, Crocker comes in a truck. So you can do sound effects to shorthand what's actually happening on the screen. What I say, it's still good to imitate voices for your own unknown characters. Can it be distracting? Go for it. As long as the character voices like are audibly legible, as long as you can understand what they're going or what they're doing. Yeah, why not go for it? Because you're adding that performance, you're adding that extra bit of additional information, which if it's an OC, the person that you're pitching to doesn't have it. So why not add it? Put it in there. I don't think it would be distracting at all, because that is how you want to communicate. It's another vector of communication. That character's voice is another vector of communication. So yeah, 100% go for it. And one more tip to make it feel like the film: pitch the energy and the timing of the scene. If you're pitching a high energy action sequence, like, go through things quickly and describe as little as possible. If you're pitching the animation equivalent of No Country for Old Men, first of all, good luck, because that's a crazy movie, or like There Will Be Blood. Those are going to be very slow push-in shots. Those are, going to be very like tracking shots. It's going to be very slow. And that's tough. That's tough to pitch. But you want to do that as much as possible. You want to like boom, 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 boom. We're slowly pushing in. We recently had a horror episode, like an It Follows episode, and the director and the board artists pitched it slowly and pitched it with dread and pitched it with like, as we were pushing into, as we were in evil cam point of view, looking at the protagonist, it was a slow pitch, just, over 4 panels. Our narrated scenes with no character dialogue done similar. Just do your best voice idea along with whatever sound effects. Go ahead. Yeah. Yes. Yep. Whatever the final is going to sound like, even if it's music, even if there's no sound effect, and it's just music, you can do a little like, you can pretend to do a little bit of music over it, just to add that information vector, or it's a trope thing for a horror movie, but if you're doing the Jaws soundtrack, people get what you're going for and getting the rhythm of it. So yeah, those are 4 specific tips for making your storyboard pitches feel more like film. And I'm gonna do a little bit of a demo. Was I actually? Oh no, sorry, I'm skipping that for later. What happens if you're terrified to pitch? I know a lot of storyboarders are terrified to pitch. I had one of the I won't name them, but one of the board artists on one of my former shows always kept a flask in his jacket pocket and would like take a hit from it before every pitch, and at every act break too, would take like a hit from it. He was so scared to pitch. It was absolutely hilarious, and he had the most deadpan way of pitching that was amazing, and it cracked us up. So I would not recommend doing that in a professional environment. If you're doing Zoom pitches, maybe you can get away with it, but that was one way to cope. But what if you're afraid to pitch? What if you're afraid to be vulnerable? What if you're afraid to put your stuff out there? Because it is scary as all hell. How to conquer the fear of it? How do you conquer it? You can't. You really can't beat the fear. I know board artists and directors that have been doing this for 10, 15 years, 20 years, are absolutely terrified every single time they get up there. I think it's a Gene Kelly line too. He was talking about, getting on stage getting on stage and having to dance on stage in front of everybody, in front of being in the camera and being the camera if it was a movie. And he was like, I puke every single time before I get on stage. He would even like the pinnacle of artistic integrity and the pinnacle of artistic achievement gets terrified. So I don't think you can beat the fear of pitching at all. You're always going to have that fear. You're always going to, at least I do, you're always going to have that nervousness. But you can mitigate that fear, and you can build confidence in yourself that you're going to get through it, even if you're terrified. And you can do that by practicing. Practice pitching so many times that if the dialogue was not at the bottom, you could still pitch it. You still know what the rhythm of the sequence is. You still know what the sound effects are going to be. You still know what you're showing. I had a friend who was pitching for the first time on Fairly Oddparents. And this is the first time he had ever pitched. And he would go into the gym an hour before and run through the board at least 10 times. And you could see it. Like I helped him. I helped him in that room. I was just watching his pitches. It was like, quote unquote, giving feedback, but really was just there for emotional support. And like the first pitch, he was extremely nervous and he stumbled over his words. And the second pitch, he got a little bit better. And then third, and then fourth, and then fifth, and a little bit better. And then he just got into the rhythm of it. And by the 10th pitch, like you could see he had that confidence. He was still terrified, but he had that confidence because he's run through it like 10 times. And it's almost the rhythm's there in the back of your head. And suddenly, since you've practiced it so many times, you're out of your own head. You're just doing it. You're in the rhythm. You're moving. You're going forward. You're just pitching your heart out, doing as much as you can. So practice as much as possible. And like he did, I would go into the room real early, go into the room like an hour early if you can. Even if it's just Zoom, and practice in the room, because there's something, especially like if it's in the gym or if it's in a conference room or you're doing something or you're pitching in a room that you're not quite sure about, you want to own that room. It is, you are on stage and you want to own that room as much as possible. You want to feel confident in that room. You want to feel like I know where my keyboard is. I know where my water is going to be. I know where the monitors are going to be. I know where people are going to be looking. I know where people are going to be sitting. I know exactly, I can look over at somebody and like get a laugh from somebody. Excuse me. So yeah, just get into the room early. Just own that room. Even if it's a Zoom, we do on Big Nate, because this is the first show that I've done that like was strictly a Zoom environment. We have a tech prep setup that is half an hour before the pitch. And ostensibly it's a tech prep. Ostensibly it's to just check everybody's PDFs, make sure that the PDFs are working, or even if it's animatic, making sure that the animatic screen's okay and that everybody can hear and whatnot. But most of that tech prep is just the board artist coming into the room and getting used to the room and getting the rhythm and getting warmed up and feeling confident about pitching their stuff. And then we just BS for like 20 minutes. But that BS in the room, at least it did for me, when I pitch on a consistent basis, that BS of the room helps me just feel confident about this room. It's not like I'm walking to a room full of strangers. The people that are entering the room are the audience that are entering the room are walking into a room that you have been in for 20 minutes. So they are entering your environment. You are there to show them something awesome. And you have been there. You are prepared. You are going to kick butt in that pitch. And the biggest one, this is crazy. Everybody is always rooting for your success. When you are storyboard pitching, even if you're pitching a show or you're pitching something, everybody wants to be blown away. Everybody in that room is rooting for your success, especially when it's a warm room like your crew. Your friends, you make friends with everybody in the crew, and you build these relationships. And when you're showing stuff, everybody wants to laugh. Everybody wants to see you kick ass. Everybody wants to see you do an amazing job and show them something really cool and have a really good time. Everybody is always rooting for your success in a pitch room. And if you can remember that, it takes a little bit of the edge off. Sometimes, and it's almost demonstrably true, or demonstrably true, I think is the pronunciation, that people are rooting for your success in the room. Because if you flub a joke, if you screw up the timing on something, very often you can get a laugh just being like, well, that joke sucked, so I'm cutting that in the second pass, and then you can get a little bit of laugh from that, just because it's acknowledging the truth, and everybody wanted to see you succeed. And if you acknowledge the truth of like, well, that sucked, gotta move on from that, then you can get a laugh from that, and then they're back on your side. So it's always just a little bit of proof that like everybody in the room is rooting for your success. And if anyone that isn't, fuck them. You don't need to care about their opinion. If they're rooting for you to downfall, if they're rooting for you to screw up and they don't want to see you, fuck them. Who cares? Why are they coming into that room into the first place? You don't need to care about their opinion, because if they are against you from the start, they're against you from the start. Forget it. So some general pitching tips, overall stuff to keep in mind. When you're launched on an episode, if the episode is going well, you get the EMR. I think it's something master recording. I can't remember what the E is. But it's usually, if they've recorded the episode, if the actors and the sound engineer have recorded the episode before you before you launch on Storyboards, you have the actors' lines in one big audio file in order. So, excuse me, I'm going to reach over and let somebody into the room real quick. So before you launch on boards, or even before the pitch, listen to the EMR a whole bunch of times. Get those actors' voices in your head. Get the rhythm of the scene in your head. Get the way that the actor reads the line in your head, because that's what you're pitching. That's the element that you're adding to the storyboard. That's the part that you're trying to fill in when you're doing a pitch. Is a radio play the same thing? Yeah. It depends on who you're talking to. On Breadwinners, they were done to time, so they called it a radio play. It really depends on the show. The EMR is generally the same thing, unless somebody wants to pipe in and tell me that I'm slightly incorrect. But I've heard EMR being thrown around in the same terms as radio play. Excuse me. So yeah, just listen to it so many times that you know the rhythm, and that you know what the characters are saying, and knowing what the intonation is going to be, and knowing if they're being vulnerable, if they're being loud, if they're being soft, etc. So you can just get that into your head and mirror it all as much as you can. This is a controversial one. Finish the board way before the pitch. And I'll talk a little bit about that later when I talk about like specifically the system that I use. But finishing the board a day early or so, and testing your PDF output, testing to make sure that you don't have dialogue overflow, testing to make sure that you put all your dialogue in, to testing to make sure that you have your sound effects in there, testing to make sure there's no blank panels, or there's no oversized panels, or you accidentally have a weird transition in there. Finish the board a day early, and output and test it as a PDF output, and test it a couple of times. And give yourself time to prepare. Again, it's that like getting confident with the room, being in the room early, gives you time to own the room. Giving yourself time to prepare if you finish the board gives you time to go through the board multiple times. And then you won't have any nervousness too. If you do a PDF output just before the pitch, then it is kind of nerve-wracking, because you're like, oh, you get in there and then you're a little nervous, and you're like, don't have as much confidence as you may need. So if you can finish the board way before the pitch, and really get that confidence that your board is in place. If you have the master audio, why wouldn't you just time the audio clips to your board instead of pitching with your own voice? We'll get into that a little bit later. I'm sure Nora has strong opinions on that too. We'll get into that. I'll answer that in the Q&A. And how often are pitch sessions held? How long are they usually? Is it just whenever a big section is ready to pitch full episodes? I'll dig into that afterwards too. I'm mostly a TV guy, and we have a specific schedule in TV. Feature may be slightly different, and I don't know much of the feature world, so I can answer specifically to TV, and I'll put that question in kind of the parking lot for a couple of minutes. And practice. The last tip: practice as many times as you can. Practice all the time. Practice in front of nobody. Practice in a room by yourself. Practice to your significant other. Practice to a child. Practice to anybody. And it's gonna feel really weird for a little bit just pitching to no one because you're doing stupid voice constantly. But just practice it and get comfortable with talking in a void, and getting comfortable with the board, and getting comfortable with absolutely every aspect of it. So that is my biggest tip. And again, that goes back to finishing the board early if you can. So you give yourself time to practice before the pitch if you can. Practice. Cool. So we're 38 minutes in. I'm going to talk about this is a very, very practical tip. And hopefully this is a system that I use called the dots and dial pitching system, which I kind of stole a little bit of it from Beth Slevin all the way back in Robot and Monster, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Oh God. But it's called the dots and dial pitching system. And I use this specifically to give myself a heads up and communicate information to myself about what's coming up in the board. And this might be this system, you may not want to use this specifically. You may think that this is stupid and it takes too long to prepare a board to use it. But maybe there's a little aspect of something that you can pull out of this for your own boards. So I'm going to pitch, a very particular system no one else is going to use, but maybe there's something there that'll help you. So I'm going to pitch something from a project that we had in development. And these are not my boards. This is a board artist named Christine Liu, board artist and director named Christine Liu, who did an amazing job with these. I had to dig into the boards and really prepare them in order to be able to pitch it. So I use this system to communicate to myself what's coming up, what needs to happen, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to pitch you through a sequence of what this is. Yeah. Cool. So boom, lights turn on. Lights turn on. Lights turn on. And we hear narrator, culinary combat friends, welcome to the main course. And like, yeah, woo, main course, yeah. We've got a special treat for you tonight as we pan across equipment. In this corner, weighing it at 143 ice cubes, your champion. An onion comes up, tosses it in the air. Cool slow-mo. Some spinning knife tricks. Turk, Kelvin Hart. He's sharp. He's skilled. He's severe. The crowd's like, woo, we love you, Turk. You're amazing. You're so cool. You're so cool. And in the challenger's corner, weighing in it, hi, Turk. What? We go into her. I'm a big fan. Raise Ember Fist. Hot dog, a fresh face. She's fiery. She's fresh. She's frequently out of her depth. A rookie from the Emberfist region. Oh, Turk's like, rookies. Emberfist, they're still around. Apparently, Dill. The knives go up. Crowd's like, ooh, what's gonna happen? Chick, chick, chick. Ding, 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 ding. It's cooking time. And boom, poof. There's beating. The crowd's like, oh my God, that's so cool. Take some oil. And then sploof, sploof, sploof. Onion volcanoes, always a crowd pleaser. Crowd's like, yeah, we're pleased. We're so cool. Turk's really following the recipe for perfection today, Hammy. Turk's just not reacting to the crowd. He looks over at Ray's. She's like, And Ray's better get cooking if she doesn't want to end up a burnt toast. Looks around, goes off, juggles some eggs. Stir her, realizes her hair on fire. Derek's like, what is going on with this rookie? I go to Bacon, trying to cool it off. What is she doing, Dill? No idea, Hammy. Boils over. It's just like she's making up as she goes. Well, the champ is unimpressed. It's like, I am unimpressed. And boom, we cut down to his meal. Pushes it across the grill. Oh, he's so cool. Takes a cleansing breath. Pulls up some bacon. And carefully, boom. Ting, ting, haha, I did it. Spins some bacon or spins a biscuit. Looks like we're getting close here. The battle chefs are adding the finishing touches. They throw the last ingredient, and the last ingredient comes towards the meal, and we see an energy. Whoa, 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 whoa. And we go to the top of the arena. Energy comes in from the outside of the arena towards the meals. Whoa, 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 whoa. Spins around, Rays. Whoa. Dirk not react. Here it comes. Powers up. Floosh. We cut to Ray's plate. Nothing. Huh? She comes up. Looks around. Ooh, looks like making it up as she goes hasn't paid off for Ray's. Crowd's like, oh no. She looks around, and she's failed. Boom. Boom. Huh? Woo. Breakfast sandwich here, boss. What you want me to slam? It's breakfast sandwich. When we pan up, oh, Ray's has done it. She's summoned her first official Fudokai. I believed in her the whole time. They're eating it up. They're like, oh, yeah. Woo, we did it. Blowing kisses. A shadow comes over. Boom, big meaty hands. Onion tentacles. Snorts. We pull out. Big meaty roar. We go in. It's beef terrapin yaki. Turk with the strong summon as always. And they go down, they look at each other. Turk's like, go get him. Ray's a little nervous. Just let me at him, boss. Nods. Boom, tosses breakfast sandwich up in the air. Gonna be a good food fight tonight, folks. They come towards each other. Welcome to Fudokai Fighters. So yeah, that is the thing that we were doing. So to dig into a little bit on the system, excuse me, a little bit into the system, giving yourself clues about what's coming up, about how many more panels are happening, about what dialogue is taking place over what panel. So for instance, we start on black and we cut to this and we cut to the lights, and I give myself one period right there, which means there is one period or there is one panel until something happens. And in this case, it's, lost focus. Boom, shunk, the lights turn on. And I give myself a sound effect right there in order to say it. The next panel. So again, one period. I know something is going to happen. Oh, wow, I keep losing window focus. I'm sorry. Page down. There we go. One more panel. And then culinary combat, friends. So I know that there's a whole bunch of animation. I see all those periods right there. I know that there's a whole bunch of panels that are going to happen over this one particular line. So I know, so that's why there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 panels over this one line. So as the panels go down, it kind of counts down 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I know when the cut is going to happen. Also, this little dash means that this character is going to continue speaking in the next series of panels. So it's, so we cut to that. Culinary combat, friends. Welcome to the main course. So I know dash means this line is going to continue, and the dash in means the line was continued from the previous group of panels, and it's the same character. And so I only gave myself 2 panels here. Welcome to the main course, because this is going to be a slow pan down. So I only needed 3 panels to cover this line. Welcome to the main course, as opposed to this one, because I gave myself a whole bunch of panels because these lights are going to be moving fast. So I gave myself 9 panels here worth of it in order to do the line, because those lights are going to be going relatively fast. So I want to have a bunch of panels to make it feel like, oh, the lights are going fast. And in this one, this is just going to be a slow pan down. So you only need 3 panels to do this one particular line. And again, here, woo, 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 yeah, slow pan. If you don't have any specifics for this, for what that line is supposed to be, you can always just throw in a stupid, like, yeah, main course, woohoo, that was awesome. Just make the character, just make the crowd repeat whatever the last thing said was, and you get a little bit of a laugh. But yeah, again, 3, 2, 1, cut. We've got a special treat for you tonight. So also you can put a line, and a series of dots and 5 dots over multiple images. Excuse me, over multiple images, because all the audience needs to know in this section is that you're panning across equipment. So you don't have to stop and say, we're panning across kitchen equipment. And you don't have to really say, for this, you don't have to say we pan across a stove, and then we pan across an oven, or we pan across a teppanyaki grill, and then we pan across a stove. Like that information, that specific information isn't needed at all. It's just that it's a kitchen equipment we're panning across. So that's why I put 5 panels over those lines. And actually I screwed this up. I should have done dash here at the end and dash at the beginning, because Hammy Power Meal is the one that continues to talk. In this corner, and again, 3 panels, weighing it at 143 ice cubes, the dash to the beginning and the dash to the end. Your champion. And so I did end dash in the beginning because Hammy is still speaking. Your champion. And then I did an ellipsis with an extra period there, because Hammy Power Meal is going to continue talking. But there's a whole bunch of action that needs to happen before his next line continues. So I had to throw it up in the air. Yep. And because all this is going to be happening quickly, when you get to the final, or when this becomes an animatic, all this is going to be happening super quickly. So again, you can give yourself a whole bunch of panels, boom, and then a beat, because all the audience really has to read in this section is that it goes up. We see that it's an onion. We cut to a knife. It's cool knife tricks, and all that happens super quickly. So you can put a whole bunch of periods over that, so you can tell yourself to speed through this section, because you don't need to spend a lot of time on any individual panel. And then we go in. Yeah, exactly. It's like a loading bar. Turk Kelvin Hart, he's sharp, he's skilled. And then again, because we wanted a little bit of a bounce, or a little bit of an overshoot on that sharp word, boom, skilled. I just added an extra dot there for a panel, just to hint how it's going to come in. That's a little bit of extra craziness, but really wanted to do this for the pitch. We love you, Turk. Now, normally I probably would have done this. I probably would have added a whole bunch of panels here, in order to show that like there's a camera shake and whatnot, but I just wanted to get through this. Just like, we love you, Turk. I just wanted to get through this moment pretty quickly, which is why you see all those crazy camera field guides there. So it wasn't too necessary to like show all the camera moves or show the shake. So I just had one panel over this. And in the challenger's corner, weighing in it. Now, this is a tough one, because Ray's is going to interrupt Hammy. So it's Hammy Power Mill weighing in at, hi, Turk. That's a tough one to indicate. I knew, according to the system, this works. It's just weighing in at, and then hi, Turk. That's how I would break it down for the system. Now I had practiced enough to know and to remember intuitively that Ray's is going to cut him off. So again, comes back to that thing of practice of like weighing in it, high turn, huh? And then knowing that she's going to interrupt in the back of your head because you've practiced so many times. And then this is a really dumb one. Nobody uses this. I'm the only one that does this. But if I want a cycle of AB, these two things, the later than, greater than, less than, excuse me, just AB, 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 AB. So this is only 2 panels, but if I really cared about this and I practiced enough, I would know to cycle these 2 panels. I'm a big fan. Hot dog, a fresh face. She's fiery. She's fresh. She's shooting out of your depth. A rookie from the Emberfist region. So yeah, and again, other characters, the announcers are going to still be talking over this, but the audience is reading. The audience is going to be reading that they're pulling out the knives, that they're getting ready, that it's a split screen, etc. So you don't have to say a lot of that. You can have the narrator speaking over that, because the audience, all you're trying to get across is that they're pulling up stuff, and the audience is going to process that. Ooh. So I'll skip forward to the one part that it was super important to practice in this particular sequence, because we do this whole misdirect of like building up energy, building up energy, building up energy. It's building up that something is going to happen. And the narrators have been talking about this the whole time, adding the finishing touches. And we hear boo, woo, 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 woo. We hear the crescendo, boo, woo, 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 woo. Energy going towards boo, woo, 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 woo. If you can, build the pitch. If you're building up a crescendo like that, build the pitch of the sound effects so that the audience knows like, oh, something's going to happen. It's coming to a head. Boo, woo, 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 woo. She goes around. Woo, 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 woo. Here it comes. Woo, 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 woo. Boom. And so super important to land this, because you're building to a crescendo and you're expecting the audience, and the audience is going to expect something. And then you cut to the plate and there's a beat and there's nothing. So I'll literally write beat right there, just so I know to stop there. And if you've practiced enough times, and you see that little bar right there, like, okay, stop, chill out for a second. There's a beat. And then the more important one was this one, she sighs. And then the beat right there, like taking a moment, knowing that you're taking a moment to sit with Rays. And then we've got a misdirect that nothing's happening, and then boom, boom, and then building up the energy again. So you take a pause there, and then woo, breakfast sandwich here, boss. What you want me to slam? And sometimes if you're building enough, if you're going quickly and you have enough energy, and the rhythm is supposed to be fast, but you might like go past a line accidentally. Give yourself a couple of extra panels there. Like I found myself, what you want me to slam? I found myself accidentally advancing so often to the text coming in, because I was just like building high energy, that I gave myself one more panel to remind myself like, okay, stop. And that's part of my problem when I'm pitching stuff, is that I tend to skip ahead a panel or two, and it screws me up a little bit because I tend to get high energy, so I have to slow down a little bit. So that's the dots and dial system. And periods, basically saying how many more panels are coming up. Dash at the beginning of a line, indicating that the character is continuing it from a previous line. Dash at the end, meaning that that character will continue speaking. And then dots to indicate how many more panels are coming up. And adding, I personally do sound effects usually in little brackets, and little greater than or less than. I guess I did it with the brackets here. Yeah, I guess I did it with the bars there. But it also helps to put those sound effects in there, because then you remember what kind of sound effect to do. And it can just be that little trigger for yourself, like energy crescendo. And then also when somebody is reading the PDF outside of the pitch, then then they understand exactly what you're trying to do, and the animatic editor can understand exactly what you're trying to do. So yeah, that's specifically the dots and dial system. I know only only a couple of people that use it. It's like me and my old friend Dakota. But like I stole this from Beth Slevin on Robot and Monster, who had her own system. Like a red dot meant to pause, a green dot meant to go fast, a yellow dot meant to go slow on the panel. There's a bunch of different ways you can interpret that system, but yeah, Beth is absolutely amazing. I love her and I miss her. A bunch of different ways to that you can use little bits of that system. Yeah. So let's dig into the Q&A, because we're about an hour in. I'll answer some of the easy ones, some of the easier ones quickly. And anybody else weigh in the chat too if you have more questions too. I noticed there were no action notes. Are they unnecessary during the pitch? To me, it depends on the production, and it depends on what you need to get across, and it depends on what the requirements of the show are. Working on this show, working over the last 5 years, or the last 7 years, I guess now. I have not done action notes. I personally tend to do enough poses, or try to do enough poses, that the action notes are unnecessary, to the point where, like, if a character is brushing their teeth, very often I will do an A/B cycle of them brushing their teeth. If a character is like tossing a ball up and down, I'll very often like draw an A/B cycle. So I've personally, and because I've been boarding ever since Fairly Oddparents, I've been boarding for animatics. I personally haven't done action notes because I've tried to give enough panels so that the animatic editor can get it in the animatic. And on most shows, well, actually, I don't even know most shows. On the shows that I've worked on, the storyboard does not get shown to the overseas studio, or the whatever studio, whether it's in Canada or whatnot. So I haven't used action notes because we haven't needed to clarify the action. Most of the time we try to get it into the animatic. Some shows may do it totally differently. On Fairly Oddparents, because the show was still sheet timed, we had to do a lot of action notes, like Crocker zips in or Crocker saunters in, because you were only doing like one or two poses, because that was such a more on model show and more of a 2D show. We had to do action notes because it told the sheet timers, and the sheet timers were going to look at the board. We're actually going to go through the PDF and see, okay, what are the action notes? The sheet timers would use the action notes to time the board. Excuse me. Are action notes important during a pitch? I don't think so. During a storyboard pitch, I don't think so. When you're outputting your PDF, you can uncheck exporting action notes so that it's not unnecessary text, unnecessary information. Because the worst thing is when people start reading the dialogue, reading the text, or reading the action notes, and they're not looking at the actual images. So I don't think action notes are necessary during a pitch. But ask your supervisor, ask your storyboard supervisor, or your supervising director, or your director, or whomever, what the situation of action notes is, because it might be totally different during production. Your director may want it because they look at the board and they ship the board to the animatic editor. So that's really just personal. It really just depends on production. How often are pitch sessions held? How long are they usually? Is it just whenever big section is ready to be pitched, full episodes? Really depends on the production. I can give it a couple examples of, Nora can probably weigh into, and other pros in the chat. I see there's a long list of people, so I can't see. Excuse me. So on Big Nate, We are 3 weeks to rough. We have a handout on a Friday of week 0. We have week 1, 2, 3 to rough. And then the Monday of week 4 is a rough pitch. And that is mostly internal. The executives are also included in that one, which is a Nickelodeon thing. So it's 3 weeks to the rough pitch and then 3 weeks to a clean pitch. And we clean pitch on the Thursday of week 6. So we have, for each episode, we have 2 pitches, the rough pitch and the clean pitch. And that also varies from show to show. On Home, which was a board-driven show, there was 2 people. It was 2 people per 11-minute episode, and you had a rough pitch after 2 weeks to your supervising producer, and then clean. I think you had a clean pitch in 3.5 weeks to the supervising producer and the executive producers. And then I think it was, then you got notes from that. And then 5 weeks after that was the executive pitch, so that you're showing the episode to the executives. And that was, I think it was 5 weeks to split an 11-minute board. Nora says, mostly done 3 weeks of rough pitch and 2 more weeks to clean pitch. Then we pitch that to the execs. Then it goes to revisions, or revisionists have to make it look good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That sounds like a similar schedule. No, I'm sorry. Home had 10 weeks to do a storyboard. No, it was 2 board artists working simultaneously. So we had 2 weeks to rough, and then a week and a half to clean from that, and then another week and a half before we pitched the executive. So I believe it was 5 total weeks, 2 board artists splitting in 11. And it says we have 3 weeks to rough pitch, 3 weeks to clean, then it goes to the editor for first and tonal review. The board artists only end up pitching once on their roughs. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And that's the way we work too. It's, the board artist rough pitch once and then clean pitch. Another question, Gage Spell, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Gage Spell. We're posting a question from earlier. If you have the master audio, why wouldn't you just time your clips to the boards instead of pitching with your own voice? That is a contentious topic in the Animation Guild and in the world of storyboarding right now. It depends. Let's see. It depends on the production. So on Breadwinners, we were given a real radio play with music and everything, music and sound effects. We were given a real radio play, and then we were timing our boards to that. On some shows that I hear about, the board artists are expected to put the actors' lines in the storyboard profile, time things, and then export a quick time. So on some, there we go. So on some shows, that is part of the expectation, timing the audio clips to the boards instead of pitching with your own voice. I personally am not a fan of board artists having to do that, for a number of reasons. Musical shows often have board artist timing. Yeah, that's the only thing on Big Nate. That's the only thing we ask for timed, because it's like 45 seconds, a minute, whatever. Time your boards to the song, please. But everything else, like, we don't want to expect board artists to be timing their own stuff, because in my personal opinion, that's an animatic editor's job. And for the most part, board artists aren't animatic editors. Board artists are being asked to draw and direct a whole, and visually direct an episode. But when a board artist times their work, and it has the actor's audio in there, and you just show a quick time, without sound effects or without music, and it's just the voice actor's lines, I don't know, it's kind of boring. And without the music, without the sound effects, it's really hard to tell if something is working. So I don't know if you've all seen the clip of the medal ceremony from I think it's it's either Star Wars or The Empire Strikes Back. Excuse me. when you watch that, it's a clip of the medal ceremony, but without any of the music, with just the actors looking at each other and without little sound effects. And it looks like that sequence does not work at all. It looks like that is a boring ass, like 3 minute ceremony. Excuse me. So to ask a board artist to do timing and just output a quick time and just show that instead of pitching, I don't know. I think that does the board artist a disservice. It does a disservice to the work, and it's not part of the job description. The animatic editor's job is to take everything and put it to time, to put in the music, to put in the rhythm, to put in the sound effects. And if you're a board artist and you're expected to do timing, generally the schedule isn't allowing for it, and it's frustrating because you don't have the time to really spend to make it something. It's like this weird uncanny valley of not quite a board, not quite an animatic. So I strongly discourage board artists to be timing their stuff with the audio in there, and export that as a quick time. Now, if that's the way that you process boards, if that's the way that you process storyboarding, is by dropping the actor's audio in there and doing acting to the audio, one or two poses to the audio. If that's the way that you process it, cool. That's awesome. And you're going to do a little bit of acting to the actual actor's lines. Cool. If that stuff is in the storyboard profile, that'll make it to the animatic editors. And then it smooths their job out a little bit. But if you're timing out the whole thing and you're showing it as a quick time, it's just not fun to watch. It's just kind of boring. And for me, when you make a storyboard pitch feel more like film, or what the final film is going to sound like as much as possible, then you can bring your entertainment to it. Then you give everybody in the room a good feeling, or you get a laugh, or you get some excitement, or you convey your own emotions, and that is entertaining. So when you don't have the sound effects and you don't have the music, and you don't have the actual actors' voices in there, you put that in by interjecting yourself. And then you also get to be a little bit of a star too. You get to, have fun with performing the characters, performing the voices. And you get that, for me, for its comedy, you get that adrenaline rush of a laugh, which makes you want to do better. And Nora says, I think timing to audio gives extra work to you. You don't get an opportunity to see any dances, draw extra panels. Yeah, radio plays given to board artists are usually to give people an idea how the lines are read. Yeah, exactly. It's just a lot of work, and board schedules don't account for that a lot. So I discourage just putting the actors' lines in there and exporting a quick time. How many frames do you draw to avoid making an almost complete animation? Not quite sure how to answer that question, because it differs from show to show. The animation requirements differ from show to show. Excuse me. Fairly Oddparents, an 11-minute board was generally around 550 panels. On home, because the characters were relatively simple, and there were not a lot of characters, I was personally pushing like 1,400 panels for half an 11-minute, and I think Dakota was pushing like 1,100 panels for an 11-minute, which is a lot. But I tended to over animate stuff. I tended to do a lot of that. So the answer really differs from show to show, and like it is a little bit of a contest sometimes of, I did 1,400 panels for this. Oh, I did 1,600 panels. It's a little bit of like a swing and pine, but it doesn't matter too much. It's really on the requirements of the show. And so let me go way back, because somebody had a very specific question that I wanted to get a little bit different. Oh, do the voice actors take reference from the way storyboard artists pitch, or just follow the script and voice director? So it depends on the show, and it depends on the process. So I'll speak specifically to two examples, Big Nate and Home, which are the shows that I know. On Big Nate, we, as much as possible, we get the voice actors to record the episodes before we launch the board artists, so that the board artists are doing the acting and the action to the voice actors' performance. Now, sometimes after 3 weeks, 6 weeks, we put the panels into animatic. Sometimes when we get stuff into animatic, we see, oh no, this line isn't working, or oh no, this line was read slow, but it was intended to be a very fast line. So the actor's performance isn't working for the scene as a whole as it works. So what we'll generally do is we'll record scratch. Our animatic editor or the director or somebody will record scratch and take a line that was slow, that was like, Nate, I'm so scared. And re-record it as like, oh, Nate, I'm so scared. In order to make the scene work. And so when we get stuff into first animatic, if there's a piece of scratch like that, what we'll do is we record pickups. And so after that first animatic, a pickup script is made, and and there will be some information about what that pickup is required. It'll be like, here's the time code in the animatic, and here's the line, and here's the energy that it needs to be said with. And out of that pickup script, we'll bring that pickup script to a record session, and we will play the animatic with that scratch line for the actor, so that they can at least understand the context of the scene and understand what we were looking for. So in an original record, generally the board artist goes after what the actor has. If it's in animatic, the actor gets some context and can listen to what the board artist or what the director or what the animatic editor did. Now on Home, which was a board driven show, we were writing all the dialogue before it got recorded. So we would, in the action notes or in the dialogue notes of the board, or not the action notes, excuse me, in the dialogue notes of the board, we would do little parentheses of saying, please, like, speedy or nervous or terrified or shaking or exuberant or coughing during this line. So that when a pickup or a record script gets made out of the board, that information got into the script for the actors, and they would look at the script and understand understand what the requirement of the scene was and try to read it that way. So in that case, the actors were going a little bit off of what the board artists were writing the line as. But even then, like, actors gonna act, man. Sometimes they want to do their own thing, which is awesome, because they think they can bring something new to the role, something surprising, something that wasn't in the board. And then they do their own, they read it one particular way and then get it into animatic. And it's like, okay, cool, that works. Maybe we got to adjust the acting. So for script driven shows, it can go both ways. Generally, the board artists want to go off of what the actors are doing. Board driven shows, we try and tell the actors a little bit of what the scene needs. But it's a little timey-wimey. It's a little bit more nebulous. Yeah. Does anybody have any more questions before we wrap this up? Would say bring in your own energy, and you want to share that energy with the pitch session audience. Help everyone get excited and have fun. Is that cool? Yeah. That's what. Yeah. You want to have fun, and I think I personally got into the industry because it's fun. It's fun to draw, and I love drawing, and I love making animation. But it's also fun to just show off your work in a pitch, and I think the pitch is an amazing opportunity to show who you are, show your work, show your excitement for the project, and get a laugh and get feedback. And get that instant feedback of, was this funny or was this not funny? If you pitch a joke and it does not get a laugh, you get that visceral reaction of like, well, shit, okay, I guess I'm doing that note. I guess I'm changing that. Do I know if there's any literature that details more info on storyboarding styles like dots and dash, or is it more learned from others? It's also malleable for the individual too. I have never, besides like Twitter threads on the particular systems, on particular pitch systems, I've never seen any literature or documentation or anything on it. It's just something that I've seen kind of kicked around between board artists, and I can trace it back to Beth Slevin. That's where I learned it from. I don't know if Beth saw it somewhere else, or was just inspired to do it just because of anxiety, and we're all nervous about performing badly, and so we want to put that system into there. I do not have any I've never seen any literature on it. I would recommend inventing a system for yourself, in inventing specifically like because it also depends on what show you're working on. If you're on Jellystone, totally different timing than Fairly Odd Parents. If you're working on Big Nate, different timing than, Coco Melon. I would advise kind of seeing what works for you, and that's going to take like 3 or 4 boards to develop that system. Yeah, I would say it's super, super malleable. I haven't seen any literature or any specific information written down anywhere. Yeah. Any more questions? If there no more questions, we'll take a last minute to say thank you everybody for coming. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was fun. I hope this was entertaining. Yeah, and I hope you all find a love for pitching, because pitching is a blast. Pitching is a hell of a blast. It just takes a lot of practice and a lot of practice to get through the nervousness of it. But it's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend trying it and just pitching to your friends too, and just seeing if you can get a laugh and have a good time. Cool. Yeah, will this recording be available after? Yeah. Gonna put it on the YouTube. May take a day or two to get it up there, but I'm gonna put it on the YouTube, on the Story for All YouTube, and we'll post the link, and we'll email it out. So thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for coming. Hope you had a good time, and hope you have a great day and be excellent to each other. See ya.